Have you trained your children to listen?
Welcome to Parenting Matters Now, a source of parenting advice a few minutes at a time.
Hi, this is Dr. Roger Smith of Parenting Matters Now. Listening is a skill and it's something that we all must develop. There's a poem that I love. It's a little short ditty. It's called "A Wise Old Owl Sat in an Oak. The more he listened, the less he spoke. The less he spoke, the more he heard. Why aren't we more like that wise old bird?" And so there are times that we have to learn to listen. And so when we think of teaching our children to listen, oftentimes we just want them to listen to our instruction. We want them to follow our instruction, but that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the skill of being able to pay attention to things around them. And so let's put it in the context of a young child. And so it's a whole lot different with the older child because they're wanting to do the talking whenever they get to be 10, 12, 14. Certainly when they're 17, 18, they're wanting to do the talking and we need to be doing the listening. So let's back it up to the early years whenever they are young, and whenever they're in their ages in single digits, we have a chance to train them to listen and to listen well. And so there are some techniques that will help. And we can't cover it all, but I'm gonna cover a few principles here. And so let's pretend that you are taking your child to an event. Let's say it's a wedding or it's a graduation or it's a church service or something that you kind of know what's going to happen. And you know some things, some components to it. You know what people typically will say, words that they will use, or situations that present themselves. And so giving your child a description of what is going to happen and giving them things to listen for, you're guiding their listening. So whether you create a game like a bingo card that listen for when someone says, certain words, like at a wedding, you know that there are certain phrases or things that are referred to in the wedding, songs that are maybe sung are they can observe not just with their ears but with their eyes. Look for things, things that people have on or something that they're carrying, and so it helps to guide their attention. And so instead of we tend to just say, be quiet, be still. If we can guide their attention, that helps them and it trains them to begin to listen for certain things. And so whenever it's a small child, one of the greatest ways to teach them how to listen is to tell them stories about themselves. Everyone wants to hear stories about themselves when they were a smaller child. And sometimes they want to hear stories about when you were a child. And bedtime is a great time for that. So you tell stories, and they don't mind if it's the same story over and over, especially if it's about them. They love hearing stories about themselves and they listen for the details. And sometimes I had a habit of messing up the details to see if they were paying attention. I would say something wrong. They would invariably correct me or they would laugh and they would, because they had imagined it a certain way and I said something different. But stories about them or stories about you or someone that they love, it could be imaginary character that you tell the story over and over about this person doing it, having adventures. But whenever they're small, they love stories and they learn through the stories to listen for details. And that is a training process. You can use books. Books are great in that. And what happens if you skip a page that's familiar in a book that's familiar to them? They know that you've skipped a page because they are listening. And even if it seems that they are not listening, they are fidgeting with certain things. If you skip a page or you say the wrong word, invariably their ears perk up. And so there are things like that that you're training their capacity to pay attention and listen to details. And it can be things like you go on a camping trip and you say, okay, we're going to be quiet. Let's see what we can hear. What what sounds are there in this camping area or in these woods? They listen for birds, they listen for squirrels or different animals that are crawling or moving about, or if it's at the beach, you'll hear wind or you hear different other things. So look for opportunities to say, let's be quiet and listen. And don't listen for very long because their attention span is very short. But you can ask them, what did they hear? And those are training tools because little by little they're gaining that ability to pay attention to details, things that are happening around them, that are, and all of that is important for them, especially when they go to someplace new. You take a family vacation and you go into a city and it's new for them, and they see things that are different. And you can say, "What do you hear? And where is it coming from? What is that sound?" And helping them to learn to listen for details. And so then it transfers to listening to your voice. Do you use your voice in a positive way, or do you use your voice in a punishing way? Uh, their name is the most important word to them in their language. Do you use their name only when you're frustrated or angry or disappointed with them? Do you call their name repeatedly as a punishment? Be careful with that because they want to hear their name when you're calling them for something good. And be careful how you use their name because even in that, you're training them whether to listen to you. If you're calling to them, one of the practices we use for small children, teaching a child to come to their name, is that you can make it like a game. If your child is 3, 4, 5, in that age range, you can tell them you're going to, from time to time, call their name, and you give them a prize of some sort. It could be just simply a hug and a kiss, but in some way, reward a child for coming when you call their name, because there's a time whenever you may be calling their name for safety reasons, and you're training them to respond to their name, that they know that when you call their name, it's for their good to respond, not in a threatful kind of way, but in a safety kind of way and a helpful kind of way. And that it's a good thing to hear their mother or their father's voice when they call their name. And whenever they give them instructions, it begins with stories. It begins with, all those experiences of teaching them to observe things around them, whether they're at an event or they are just simply living life with you, going different places and hearing new things. Teach your children to listen. It's Dr. Roger Smith of Parenting Matters Now.
Subscribe to Parenting Matters Now for more advice, or go to rogersmithmd.com to search for more topics. See you next time.